All right, this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. And I want to welcome you all to today's event. If you can hear me from any part of the world, this is me saying welcome to this event. So let's get started on what we need to do. But before we continue, I want to know if you all can hear me. I can see that 5 people are watching, and I will be glad if you can just drop a message in the comment section to say that you can hear me. All right, so if you can't hear me, please drop a message in the comment section and I will be able to proceed. While we are waiting for others to join, this event is going to run for 3 days. Today is the first day, and for tomorrow we're going to start at exactly this time, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. GMT, and then on Saturday we're going to also run this event between the hours of 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. All right, like I mentioned, this is one event that you wouldn't want any of your friends to miss. And because you don't want your friends to miss this event, while we are still doing these introductory sections, you can just copy the link to the event and maybe share it with a friend, post it on your WhatsApp, post it on your Facebook, just anywhere. But today, we're going to be looking at scholarship opportunities and how you can win them. All right, there is one thing is to know about the scholarships. The other thing is to know how to apply for these scholarships in order to win them. And then tomorrow, we're going to do a practical session of picking up a CV, working on that CV, and having all the relevant things that need to go into a CV on the CV. We're also going to look at what's called statement of purpose tomorrow. Then the day on Saturday, we are going to go very much deeply into the concept of networking. And networking is something that both the people who are graduates and looking for scholarships will benefit from, and then those who are graduates and looking for jobs will also benefit from massively. So if you join this event today, don't forget to invite a friend tomorrow. If the friend already knows everything about scholarships and how to win them, let that friend come tomorrow to learn how to write an amazing CV. And then if the friend already knows how to write CVs, then talk to the friend about the networking session. I tell people that all the jobs I've done, every professional job I've done since my graduation have come through one form of networking or the other. And even the next job I will do will still be a product of networking. And it makes things a whole lot easier if you understand the concept of networking. But today, we're going to look at scholarships. I believe that all of us who are here are interested in scholarships. So this is the one, fully funded international scholarships and how to win them. Right? How to win international scholarships. Okay, so let's begin to go into what we need to do today. Now, the reason I have decided to do this training or this workshop is because I understand that education in developed countries or in many developed countries is quite expensive. Education in developed countries is very expensive. And because education in developed countries is very expensive, we want to look at the other option of getting this education without having to pay. So I don't know what can be better than having an institution or having an organization fund your education all completely for free. I've been a beneficiary of several scholarships, and that is what gave me the understanding that, if somebody else is willing to pay for it, why do you want to stress yourself into paying, coughing out the money and paying when you have an option? And because you have that option, the options you have are the things we are going to discuss today, and how to take advantage of those options are also part of what we will be discussing today. Now, this is how this program is going to run. We're going to have this session of presentations, and we are also going to have a time for questions and answers. But because this is a YouTube live, you may not have the opportunity of asking your questions verbally, but you'll be able to type your questions in the comment section, and I will be going through those comment section and picking up those questions and responding to them as when the time comes. So you want to look at yourself. For instance, let's say you are somewhere in Nigeria. Where is Nigeria here? Okay, this is Nigeria. Or you are somewhere in Algeria, or somewhere in any part of the world for that matter, or even in South Africa, right? And you are looking for an opportunity to go study in any of those countries listed here. It could be the United States of America, it could be the United Kingdom, it could be to Germany, it could be Russia, it could be France, it could be New Zealand, Australia, any of those places. But let's say that you want to go to any of those places to study. If you intended to come to the United Kingdom for studies, you may have to plan for somewhere around £16,000 to say around £28,000. If you are from Nigeria, at the current exchange rate, £16,000 is over 32 million naira. This is the amount of money you will be paying in the United Kingdom if you come here as a self-funded student. And this is even in the cheapest of schools, because when you begin to go to the Russell Group schools, you will begin to cough out somewhere around 24,000, 28,000, 30-something thousand pounds per year. But if you follow the instructions we're going to give today, if you follow the teachings we're going to be sharing today, you will not have to pay that amount of money, because some institution somewhere will cover that tuition for you. But let's look at this, because this event is organized for graduates, right? And every other person who joins the event today will be learning more or less in advance. If you are an undergraduate, you can follow what we are discussing today, but most of the examples I'll be giving will be directly applicable to those who have graduated, and then will be relevant to yourself after you graduate. But let's do this brainstorm before we begin to go into the rest of the slides. Imagine that you are at the point of graduation and a lot of things are running through your mind. You want to consider, do you go into a business at the point of after your graduation, or do you go on to further studies? If you choose to go on to further studies, how do you pay for that further studies? That's another question. If you choose to go into business, the question becomes, do you have the capital to start up the business today? And if, for instance, you choose to now look at your life at that critical point where you need to make a critical decision, or at that crossroad where you need to make a critical decision, you are wondering, do you go for jobs? Do you go for further studies? Do you go into entrepreneurship? Do you go into further skill acquisition? Recently, I learned that in Nigeria, they are planning to introduce something that's called there's a name they called it, but something like a 1-year program for engineering students where they train the people. I think it's called, they are intending to call it an engineering academy. But if, for instance, you choose to go for that engineering academy, then you will now find that what you're going to do there basically is to acquire additional skills. This could be something you want to do. This could be something another person wants to do. But all the people who are interested in all these other things, you have a place in what we are discussing today, but the rest of the conversation will be purely focused on those who are going for additional studies, or for further studies as the name might be called. So, before we even make progress, I want to emphasize something. Whether or not you are looking for jobs, or you are looking for further studies, or you are trying to go into entrepreneurship, the key points you must take away from this beginning of this conversation is that you have to think globally. I shared a post recently, I think that was yesterday, about how people should begin to see themselves as global citizens, and how you should begin to operate when you appear on a global platform. So at this point of your life where you have graduated, begin to look at yourself as not just a citizen of your country, but as a global citizen. Because when you view yourself as a global citizen, then you begin to take advantage of the opportunities that are beyond the shores of your country. And that is something you must definitely have to start doing if you want to win scholarships. Now, let's look at this. You decide to go into scholarships or you decide to go for further studies rather. There are multiple options for funding. The first one is what is called grants. The other one is scholarships. The other ones are called fellowships. There is a category called bursaries. And then, of course, you can decide to self-support yourself or to take money from your parents in order to support yourself. The last one is something I wouldn't encourage anyone to do, but except where that becomes your only option. But if you have the opportunity to get a grant, to get a scholarship, to win a fellowship or a bursary, these are the options I want you to focus on, and that is what we want to discuss today. If your parents have the money and are willing to pay, fine and good, that's perfect. If you have the money and you are willing to pay for yourself, or you have a sponsor from your family who is willing to and capable to pay, that's also fine. All right, but the point of what we are discussing today is for those who may not be able to pay by themselves, those who may not be able to have a family member who is able and willing to pay for them. I want to show us how you can source scholarships that will help you to win. But there is a number of things that we need to get cleared on the pathway of discussing scholarships. You see, there are so many people who believe that scholarships, who believe some very strange things about scholarships. There are people who believe that they cannot win scholarships. That is, regardless of how much you take your time to talk to them, they just do not believe that they can win any scholarships at all. So those categories of persons are one of the groups that I want to address today. If you're one of those people who do not believe that you can win any scholarship, this conversation is for you. And very often the reason why they do not believe that they can win scholarships differ. It could be that they have been told by someone that the only way somebody wins a scholarship is if the person has a first class. And that's one of the things I call the myth of scholarship. It's not a reality. Somebody has just made it up somewhere and convinced you to believe it. And probably nobody actually convinced you to believe it. You probably just got intimidated by the profiles of those whom you have seen that won different scholarships. And because of your intimidation by their profiles, you have gone somewhere into your shell and have refused to apply for any scholarship. So scholarships, people will tell you that you need to be highly connected before you can win a scholarship. And one of those scholarships people will point at are usually the scholarships that are funded from within their country. So somebody can tell you that if you don't have a high profile connect in Abuja, then nobody is going to give you the PTDF scholarship. Another person can tell you that if you don't have a high profile connect in Lagos, then nobody is going to give you the BEA, Bilateral Educational Agreement Scholarship. Someone else can tell you that if you don't have somebody in the British High Commission, then nobody is going to give you the Chevening Scholarship. All of these things are statements that are unfounded. There is nowhere in law, there is no law or no rule that says that you must have connections in order to win a scholarship. All right, so you want to get those things out of your mind. The other one is people will tell you sometimes that people from your country do not qualify for scholarships, and this can happen in some of the smaller countries of the world because people are maybe less ambitious in your place. And then you have not seen any of your immediate friends who has won a scholarship, and because of that you believe that, well, these scholarships are just for people from China, these scholarships are for people from India, for people from Ghana, for people from Nigeria. But the reality is there will always be a scholarship that somebody from your country qualify for to win. All right. So people will also tell you, or some people seem to think that without the English language test, you cannot apply for scholarships. And this can be true in some cases, but in many other cases, you don't need the test of English language to apply for a scholarship. Sometimes you may need it at the point of seeking admission, but for the actual application for scholarship, you do not need it in some of the cases. Now, what are the realities? We are talking about the ones that are not true. Then let's talk about the things that are real, the things that are obtainable. The first point is that every scholarship you can apply, everybody, whether you have a second class, you have a first class. In fact, I have seen someone who had a third class but still was able to win a scholarship to go to study in Poland. And then from Poland, the person was able to finish his master's and move to the United States of America on a fully funded scholarship for his PhD. I read this story about 2 to 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere on LinkedIn, and the person who won that scholarship is a Nigerian. He didn't need a first class, he didn't even need a second class, but the point is, if you don't have a first class, your pathway to a scholarship is slightly different from the pathway of somebody who has a first class. And that's why I tell people that what you need to be asking, the question you need to be asking is not whether you can win a scholarship. The question you should rather be asking is, how can I win a scholarship? Depending on your situation, depending on your circumstances, depending on your qualifications, by the time you begin to ask, how can I, you begin to open your mind to the possibilities that surround your own reality. And that is what you should begin to do from today. Now, the other thing is, your skills can compensate for your grades. So, if somebody, for instance, has a grade that's not so great, right? A grade that's not so great. If your grade is not so great, then you may want to focus a little bit more on trying to improve your skills. You may want to focus a little bit more on trying to improve your skills. The reason you want to improve your skills is because when somebody or any professor or anybody is trying to offer you a scholarship, the person will offer you that scholarship, but on the basis of something. So the basis on which the person will offer you the scholarship can be the basis of it could be your academic grades. And then it could also be on the basis of your skills. It could be on the basis of your contributions to humanity and to contributions to the development of your society. It could be on different things. So if you are one of those who do not have a first class, then the question is, what other skills are relevant within your field that can help you win a scholarship? This is something you need to start thinking about right even now. Okay, please, if you have just joined us, I'll be glad to know where you've joined us from. If you are joining us from Ghana, please drop a message, say Ghana. If you've joined us from Nigeria, just type Nigeria. And because I understand Nigeria very much more, you can also include the state from which you are joining. You can say Enugu, Nigeria, or you can say Lagos, Nigeria, or you can say Kano, Nigeria. If you have joined us from Sierra Leone, please type Sierra Leone. Anywhere you've joined us from, please let me know in the comments section. All right. So the other thing is, if you have come to that point where you have graduated, you know that there is something called publications, academic journals, academic publications. If you go into your applications with some level of publications, some number of publications, you stand a very good chance of winning some kinds of scholarships. All right, and it's not so difficult to write a paper. Actually, I am planning an event where we're going to bring in some people, some additional experts, some experts in addition to myself, to teach us how to write journal papers, from review papers to experimental papers to survey papers, any kind of paper at all. We're looking at bringing in 3 additional experts at the minimum, in addition to myself, to organize that event and help every one of us to get to the point where you can go back to your bachelor's degree or your master's degree thesis, pick it up and then dust it up and create a publishable document out of that piece of work. So you will want to stay in touch, and you keep following us on Facebook, because the adverts and the publicity for that program will be on our Facebook page, Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. So your publications can stand in for your IELTS sometimes. This was what I did in my case. People have been asking me, did you have to submit IELTS? Because I studied in Russia, and Russian language was the medium of instruction during my bachelor's and during my master's. But when I got admissions into 2 schools in the UK, I did not have to submit IELTS for them. A combination of factors, of course. I had done my National Youth Service in a higher institution where English was the language of instruction, and then I had papers that were published in English language journals, and then I had a good result in English in my WAEC. So a combination of those 3 factors was what I presented to the schools, and they waived off my English language test requirement. All right, so let's keep moving. Now that you know that you can win scholarships, now that you know that your grade is not your entire limitation, the fact that you did not make a first class does not kick you out of the options of those who can win scholarships, what are then these major categories of scholarships that you can apply for? All right, let me see who has joined us from where, and then we will continue in this conversation. All right, so we have people who have joined us from, somebody has joined us from Benin City, Nigeria, Ogun State, Nigeria. Someone is joining from Scotland, Abuja, Nigeria, and where else? So please just keep dropping the message of where you've joined us from. Let me know in the comment section where you are joining from. Now, let's get back to business. What are the main scholarship options, the main categories of scholarships that you can apply for today? The first one is what I call the university funded scholarships. And then the second category is what I call the government funded scholarships. The third category is what I call the institutional scholarships. Institution in this case is not referring to academic institutions. Academic institutions are taken care of by, the first category where we called it university funded scholarships. In institutions, we are trying to portray or highlight those scholarships that are funded not by the government directly, but by certain institutions. It could be multinational organizations, it could be companies, it could be any other thing that's not a government and is also not a university. Now, when you look at the government-funded scholarships, it could be from the government of your country. That's the home government. And when you talk about the home government could be the federal government of your country. It could be the state government of a country, of your state. It could also be a regional government, depending on where you are coming from, depending on the country where you come from. But you need to also understand that in addition to those homegrown scholarships, there are other scholarships that are funded by governments of foreign countries. All right, so you will have scholarships that are funded by governments that are outside your country. And this is something I tell people, for those who complain about corruption in their country, how the scholarship processes are corrupt within their home country. One of the things you can do is to look away slightly from the scholarships that are funded by your local government, by your home government. You can begin to look outside to those scholarships that are funded by foreign governments, because in most of the cases that I know of, in all the cases I know of, when a scholarship is coming to your country from a foreign government, that scholarship will be fully judged based on merit. And so if you merit the scholarship, you will be given that scholarship. If you do not merit the scholarship, of course, you will not be given the scholarship. But if corruption is a problem within your country, then you can focus on the scholarships that are funded by foreign countries, foreign institutions, foreign governments, and foreign universities. All right, so these are the main categories. There's a fourth category of scholarships that I like to talk about, but that falls under the university funded scholarships as well. And then in the next slide, we're going to look into a breakdown of all of these scholarships to see how they relate with themselves and to see the kind of things you need to do in order to qualify for each of the scholarships. Now, look at what we have here. All right. I think there is a bit of a delay between when I start a slide and when you begin to see it. So I'll try to time my talking and time my speeches into those times when the slides are up. All right. So you have to now see that the scholarships that are funded by the universities is what is mostly called graduate assistantships. Graduate assistantships. So a graduate assistantship is a structure where the university hires you, more or less, under a supervisor who is most likely going to be a doctorate degree holder, a professor, associate professor, and you will be supporting the research of that person. Or you will be supporting teaching activities in that university. But for the sake of this conversation, I will focus on the graduate research assistantship, because assistantships can be in the form of graduate teaching assistantship, that is where you have to teach in a class, or support demonstrations in a class, support what's it called again, laboratory works, organize those kind of work for people. But what I want to focus on today is the graduate research assistantship, because for some reason it's easier to get a graduate research assistantship from outside of the country in which that scholarship is domiciled. So if you are in Africa and you are trying to apply for a graduate assistantship somewhere in the United States, the graduate research assistantship is your surest plug, is the easier option. That's the one you can get very much easily, and that's why I'm going to focus today on the graduate research assistantships. So a graduate research assistant does something. You are going to be supporting a research program within that university, and in exchange for your supporting that research program, the university is going to waive your tuition fees. The university is going to waive your tuition. And in the full package of that graduate assistantship, graduate research assistantship, the university will also be paying you some money as upkeep. All right, the university will be paying you some money as upkeep. So that amount of money that the university is going to pay you as upkeep will be what people call stipend. And very often your stipend is tax free. So the country where you are domiciled will not be charging you tax on your stipend in most of the cases. All right, so that's how the thing works. But you're going to be supporting a particular research, and because you're going to be supporting a particular research, you want to focus on, you want to try to align your research interest with the research interest of the person whose research you are going to be supporting. At the point of applying, you want to convince that lecturer, that supervisor, that professor that you have the relevant skills to be able to fit into that program that the person has, or fit into that research that the person is intending to conduct. Now, let's look away from the graduate assistantships a little bit and then move down to something I call the other special group within the graduate assistantship or within the university funded programs. This particular arrangement you are going to find in a school called KAUST. KAUST is King Abdullah University in Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. The school is in Saudi Arabia. And then there's another school called Skoltech in Russia. These two schools have this particular structure of scholarship, right? And what makes it a bit different is that, yes, you can come with your own research proposal, and then these two universities do not have any undergraduate programs. So all that you're going to be doing in the school will be research focused, and you will not have any burden of taking care of undergraduate students, marking grading undergraduate students, or doing anything that is related to undergraduate students. All right, I believe that is relatively clear. Then let's move on to the government funded scholarships. In the government-funded scholarship options I've mentioned, you are going to have scholarships that are funded by your own government, and then you are going to have scholarships that are funded by foreign governments. So you have the bilateral educational agreement kind of scholarships where two countries are going to be partners. Your own country will be funding your stipend, but the other country, the partner country or the host country, will be taking care of your fees or waiving your fees and then providing the necessary amenities for your education. That is what is called bilateral educational agreement. I think on the top chart of bilateral educational agreement hosting countries is Russia. Of course, we all know what is going on in the country at the moment, or between the country and Ukraine at the moment, but Russia stands out as one of the countries hosting African students under this bilateral educational agreement. You have it also between some countries and China, between some countries and Japan. Hungary is another popular destination for bilateral educational agreement scholarships. Turkey as well is also up there in that list. Now, moving forward, you have the Irish government scholarship. All these scholarships are mentioned, and you can go back to Google and try to check them up, and then you will see their opening times and their closing dates. The requirements are going to vary slightly, but we're going to see a couple of things that you need as a general requirement for most of these classes of scholarships. So you have the Swedish government scholarship or institute scholarship. You have the Chinese government scholarships. You have all the other state government scholarships within different countries. In Nigeria, I know that there are quite a number of them. Now, on the institutional side of scholarships, you're going to have institutions like Chevening. You're going to have institutions like Commonwealth. You're going to have institutions like PTDF, which is the organization that's funding my own study at the moment. You're going to have the Gates Cambridge Foundation, or the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, funded by, I think, the Bill and Melinda Foundation. I don't know if that name has changed now, but prior to this time, prior to their divorce, it used to be Bill and Melinda Foundation. Then you also have the MasterCard Foundation Scholarship. You have the NLNG Scholarship. Most of these other institutional scholarships that I'm mentioning now are specific to Nigerians, but the Chevening Scholarship is open to many countries of the world. Commonwealth, open to all Commonwealth countries. Gates Cambridge, open to practically all countries of the world. MasterCard Foundation is also open to Sub-Saharan Africa. And then the Rhodes Scholarship, which is open at the moment. I think Rhodes is open till the 31st of this, or the last day of this month, or the 1st of August, I can't remember exactly, but there's a post about the Rhodes on our Facebook page. You can check it up later and then go and apply. Chevening is opening on the 6th of this month of August, and by the 6th of August, you should start applying for your Chevening scholarship. So these are the institutional categories of scholarships. And whenever you think of applying for a scholarship, you're going to think of either a scholarship that's funded by the school, a scholarship that is funded by a government, or a scholarship that is funded by an institution. Each of these scholarships have their specific approach to winning them. And that's what I want to show us in the next slide. While at that, let me know who has joined us. If you have joined us from any part of the world, please do not leave without dropping a message that tells us where you have joined us from. I can see people joined us from the UK today. I can see people who have joined us from Nigeria. I cannot yet see anybody who has joined us from Ghana. If you joined us from Ghana today, please drop a message in the comments section. Abasi Frekeudoka, you've joined us from Rivers State. Thank you for joining us today. All right, so let's continue to make progress. Now, what do you need in order to win a government-funded scholarship? That's the next question. You know that there is this category of scholarship, but what exactly do you need in order to win this particular group of scholarships? All right, so let's start from the university-funded scholarships. In the university-funded scholarships, you will need to write code emails. There's something called code emails. I'm going to spend some time on code emails just shortly towards, in one of the slides that is dedicated to code emails. But you're also going to need to learn how to network. And that's why you need to attend the third day of this event. You're going to learn to showcase your publications. Publications is not something within the teaching scope of this 3-day event, but like I mentioned, there is a specific event in the plans for writing publications. All right, stay tuned on our Facebook page and you'll be able to find all that detail. Then you want to improve your research skills. Remember, I mentioned that skills can compensate for your grades. So if you are looking for this graduate assistantship kind of scholarships, you need to showcase that you have some research oriented skills, some skills that will help you to deliver on a research program. And the skills that can help you deliver on a research program can include your data analysis skills, your experimental design skills, your technical writing skills, different categories of skills. And then of course, if you have a skill that's related to one of the simulation softwares that is relevant to your field, that could also be a very good research skill that you can showcase. The other skill you need will be what I call interview and presentation skills. Interview and presentation skills. The reason you will need interview skills a lot in your lifetime is because you will do a lot of interviews in your lifetime. I repeat, you will have to do a lot of interviews in your lifetime. You will have to do a lot of interviews in your lifetime. So if you are able to follow if you are able to think of your interview skills and you're able to improve them, it will help you at the stage when the lecturers now show interest in your candidacy. So if you have indicated that yes, you are interested in this particular program, and then that lecturer has said, well, I am interested in also having you, but let's discuss. That interview skill is what will help you to navigate through that process and be able to win that scholarship in the end. So that's it for the university kind of scholarships. These are specific to university scholarships. But let's move to the government scholarships. So you will notice in this particular place that you will of course have to show evidence of your what's it called? Evidence that you have good academic background. You will need it in all the other scholarships, but it's not as relevant on graduate assistantship kind of programs as it is on the government funded programs, because on the graduate assistantships your publications can very much easily compensate for your low grades. In some of the government funded scholarships, they are looking at awarding scholarships to excellent students from their country. And then they are also going to be looking at students who are going to do something that is relevant to the development of the country's economy. And these are the reasons why I love the graduate assistantship programs a lot, because it's open to almost every courses, whether you are in the arts, in humanities, in sciences, in STEM, anything. But by the time you begin to look at the government funded scholarships and the institutional scholarships, they have like an agenda. They have a program they are trying to push forward. The government wants to push forward maybe a particular program that says, okay, we want to showcase that we want to improve the number of people from our country who have this particular skill. We want to improve the number of people from our country who have who have the capacity to run our oil and gas installations. We want to improve the number of people in our country who are able to support the growth of our economy. And that's what the country will be looking at this point. And so because the country is looking at that, you will not be considered for the scholarship if what you are trying to study is not relevant to the economic growth of the country. All right, then for these government funded scholarships, they are usually also going to be centered around your participation or your registration with relevant professional bodies. Sometimes they want to see that you are doing something that's relevant to the country, you are supporting your industry in your country, and this is something that you want to start paying attention to. So if your plan is to go for the graduate assistantship program, these are the kind of things you need to start focusing on. If your plan is to go for the government funded scholarship, these are the kind of things you want to start focusing on. And then if you are going for the institutional scholarships, you're also going to begin to focus on providing evidence of grades, and then showing relevance of your study to the funders area. So some funders will say that they are interested in improving, they're interested in supporting research in climate change or in food security. And those areas where they're interested in is what they want to fund. So any other research you are bringing that's contrary to that area will not fly. You will not win that scholarship. So you want to start focusing on those kind of areas that are relevant to them. You want to identify all of those institutions we mentioned before, including the Chevening, including the Mastercard Foundation, the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, the Rhodes Scholarship. You want to find out the details of their area of specialization. And when you start applying, you want to prove to them that the study you are going to propose or the study you are proposing to conduct is really relevant to what they are trying to achieve. All right. Now, for these scholarships, you remember in the graduate assistantships, I mentioned that you will need to learn how to write cold emails. And then you will need to learn how to network, because I go from cold emailing to warming up that relationship through my networking capabilities, which is something I'm going to share with us as we go to the third day of this particular event. Now, in the institutional scholarships, what you will need the most is your essay writing capability. Essay writing capability. And if you're not able to write good essays, I'm going to share with us today the strategies that you will need to be able to write good essays. Chevening, for instance, is opening in the next couple of days on the 6th of August. And Chevening will require you to write at least a minimum of 4 different essays. Right? You're going to write 4 different essays as part of your Chevening scholarship application. All right, just trying to check on a message that came into my phone. Wanted to see what this is. Okay, all right, that's just somebody trying to spread the message of the event. All right, so Chevening is going to require you to write 4 different classes of essays. And if you do not know how to write essays, this is the right time for you to start practicing. And that's why this event for you today is very important. We're going to discuss a strategy that works when you come to writing essays. And they're also going to look at your community involvement. How useful have you been to your community? What have you done for humanity? Many of them are going to need that as part of their judgment criteria when you apply. The graduate assistantship will not have most of these burdens on you. You may not need to write essays. You very often do not even need to write a research proposal. And in many of the cases, what you just need is to be able to write you would need to write an essay, but your SOP. So it's not going to be an essay that goes to detail how you've been involved in the community, how you are a leader, how you are this and that, but an essay that tells about your capacity, to support that research, to contribute to that research, and cause that research to make progress in the right direction. Let's keep making progress. Now, I mentioned cold emails. I'm going to take a little bit of a pause here because I want you to focus and I want to see that if you have not invited your friend to this event and that friend is looking for a scholarship, this is the right time for you to invite that friend. Because cold emails is something that you will be charged money to learn how to write by some people. And in many cases, they are charging you money in the very right way. Because this knowledge we are sharing today is not free. It's not like, they say that nothing is free, even in Freetown. Right? What we are doing today has a cost attached to it. The only thing is somebody is bearing that cost on your behalf. So if you have a friend who needs to hear about cold emails, who is interested in going abroad for studies, bring that person to this platform just right now. because cold emails is something that many people struggle with. I want to go through it and I want to simplify that process for you. Now, when you write a cold email, why is it called cold email in the first place? This term comes from marketing. The term cold email comes from marketing. So when you are chasing leads in marketing and business development, you are starting from a position of not knowing that person. You've never met the person, you've never spoken to the person, but somehow you've been able to lay your hands on the email address of that individual. Then you want to reach out with a first email to the person. The reason it's called cold is because there is no existing relationship between yourself and the person. Now, the way I prefer to do it is I love to warm up the relationship with my networking strategy. But we cannot combine the networking strategy today with the details of what we want to discuss, because there is a special day dedicated to networking, which is Saturday between 2 to 4 p.m. on Saturday this week. Right? But for the sake of cold emails, let's just stay focused on that. So because you do not know this person, you've never met the person, all you know about the person is maybe from the internet, from a particular magazine, from your conversation with somebody, from just anywhere, or from the news. You don't have an existing relationship with the person. That's why the email is called cold. But the way you write the email will determine whether you get a cold response or you get a warm response, or whether or not you even get a response at all. You can write a cold email and nobody ever gets back to you because you have written the cold email and the email is really very cold in terms of the structure of the email. But if you follow what I'm going to show you just now, you will get a cold email that's not only effective but gets the response of the people you target. Whether or not you are applying for scholarships or you are using this cold email to target sales and to grow your client base. Number one, before you ever write any cold email, you want to first do your research. Do your research. Conduct a thorough research into the person you are interested in emailing. If you want to email a professor, try to conduct a background check on that professor. And these are the key areas you should focus on. You want to understand the professor's research interest. Number one, that's critical. You want to understand some of the works that this professor or doctor or lecturer has published. You also want to go a bit further to understand whether or not this particular professor has any funded projects at the moment. If the person does not have a funded project at the moment, then there is no point wasting much of your time emailing the person if you need a scholarship at the immediate. But if the person has got a funded project, then you know that if you email this particular professor, then there is a big chance that you will be, accepted into that program because the person has a need of you at that point. All right? Because cold emails are better when they meet a need. When they meet a professor who needs you, and it becomes a case of you need the professor, but the professor also needs you and needs your skills. If you begin to write a cold email without researching anybody, you will get a lot of frustrations along the line because you'll be writing emails to people who are not looking to hire any students. You'll be writing an email to a professor of physics, and the content of that email will be something that should go to a professor of chemistry or a professor of maybe engineering. So you want to do your background check first. Where do you find these professors? Where do you run this background check? I'll mention 3 particular places. Number one, the website of the institution where the professor or the lecturer works. So, if I am looking for a professor in the University of Cambridge or in Cambridge, what I can do is go to the website of that university, navigate to the department of my interest. My interest will always be oil and gas engineering for this purpose because that's my background. So if I go to the Department of Oil and Gas Engineering or Petroleum Engineering or maybe Mechanical Engineering or anything, I will now search and I will see that there is a professor called maybe Mr. Johnson or Professor Johnson or Thompson or Jonathan or anything. And then I can look at the research, the CV of that person, his research interest or her research interest, and based on those research interests, I can see whether they align to my own research interest, or I can see whether or not I can modify my research interest to suit that one. Because when you start applying for graduate research assistantships, you do not need to stick to your own research interest to the core, because your research interest may not have any funding. And that's the truth. Your research interest may not have any funding. And so you want to be a bit flexible. And that's why you want to focus on understanding the research interest of the professor whom you are interested in working with. So you have gone through that website, you have understood that person's research interest, you've seen some of his publications. The other place where you can, and that's also the place you can find whether the professor has an active project and whether the professor is going to be interested in hiring students at the moment. It's always going to be written there. Now, move on from that. The other place where you can research a professor to understand who that person is what is called Google Scholar. I might have to do separate videos on these concepts to go into better details of them. But there's something called Google Scholar. So you can just go to Google and type Google Scholar. And when it opens, you go into Google Scholar, type the name of that professor, and you will see all the papers that the person has published in any Scopus indexed, in any indexed journal. Google Scholar will have a compilation of all those, and then you can go through the years and see how the professor's research interest has changed over time, and then you can see the most recent research interest or recent publications of the supervisor, and that will help you to craft an email that makes that person ready and interested in hiring you. Now, the other place where you can do a very good research into a supervisor is on social media. And this again is one of the reasons why you don't want to miss any day of this 3-day event. The third day of this event is when I'm going to unveil networking with senior professionals for jobs and networking with professors for the sake of scholarships. You don't want to miss it. If you miss it, well, I don't know, but my conscience will bear me record that I made the offer. So you go to social media, and you can also see when the professor publishes that he has an open opportunity for assistants. You will also be able to see the area of interest of most researchers through their social media platforms. If you go to my own LinkedIn account, you will very much easily notice that I am an oil and gas engineer, and my research area at the moment is in abandonment of oil and gas wells. It's clearly stated there, both from the kind of posts I write, from the titles, and from you will see it somewhere on my LinkedIn account that this is the area this person is focusing on. So after you've done this background check, what are the key components of a good cold email? The first part is you are going to need to write a subject, and you will need a salutation for every cold email. You will need a subject, you will need a salutation. You will also need an introduction, you will need a body of the email, and you will need a closing remark or a closing statement and a signature. We're going to go into the details, but I want to emphasize there are people who come to writing emails and all they do is just go to the email app, open Gmail, and then type the email address of the person they want to send email to, and they jump to writing the body of the email. That's a very unprofessional way of writing emails. In fact, do not send any mail to anybody without a subject. Don't ever send an email even to your friends. The only person I would allow you to send an email to without a subject is to yourself. Just like if you are sharing a document from one of your emails to the other email. And it's not even the best of practice, because when you have to look for that document you've shared many years or many months down the line, you will then realize the need for a subject on every email. But an email without a subject is very unprofessional, so do not do it. Now, how does your salutation and your subject come into play? How should you structure your subject when you are writing an email? You see, there are different approaches to this, and one of the most common approaches that the supervisor or the professor will tell you on the advert or in the advert, that when you are applying, use this in quotes as the subject. So the person says, for instance, use indication of interest in graduate assistantship as the subject. Then in that particular situation, that should be the compulsory subject that you must use when you send an email to that professor on that subject. Because if you send an email with any other subject, the person is going to discard it. That's number one. You don't follow instructions, the person is not going to look at your email in any detail. He will discard it or she will discard it. But if the person has not given you a structure on how to write the subject, don't just go into the subject and write application for graduate assistantship. That's step one of making your cold email very cold. Right? What you want to achieve in your cold email is to ensure that you make that person to see why he should hire you or why she should hire you into that research program. That should be your focus. So when you come to writing that subject, and you should reflect this should be reflected throughout the body of the email, but even starting from the subject of the email. So let's say, for instance, two people are sending out an email to you. You are the supervisor now, and one person says application for graduate assistantship. And that course you are supervising, or that research, is a research program in robotics. And somebody else says graduate of a robotics graduate applying for this position, or a robotics graduate he mentions a particular relevant skill that the professor has advertised, interested in contributing to the progress of this research. The person says, well, a mechanical engineering a first-class mechanical engineering graduate interested in supporting this research. That's a named research that the professor has. The other person says application for graduate assistantship, but this other person is already showing that yes, this job is for mechanical engineers, or this research is in mechanical engineering. I am a first-class mechanical engineering graduate, and I am interested in supporting this research, or I am interested in assisting in this research, or I'm interested in becoming your graduate assistant. All right, you begin to see the differences in the mentality and the differences in the effect and the impact of these two emails. All right, and you want to make a very good impression from the start, and that first impression starts from the subject of your email. You should, as much as possible, be concise. It should be specific, but you should make it relevant to what you are applying for. Remember, this is in a situation where the professor has not given you a compulsory subject for your emails. Then let's move on to introductions. In the introduction, you want to mention your name. You want to mention your academic background. You want to mention how you came across that work, and you want to state the purpose of your email. Right? Now, people will look for templates, and generally I don't like to give templates because your situation is different from mine, your skills are different from mine, what stands you out are different from what stands from the things that stand me out. And so before we even do the introduction, you need to learn how to write your salutations. So you have written your subject. The next thing is salutation. Salutation is where you write maybe dear professor this, that. Dear professor this. You don't go to a professor and write maybe something like hey, H-E-Y. That's a very unprofessional way of writing. But if you address the professor like, hey, hello, Professor James, or dear Professor Johnson, dear Professor Thompson, you understand that kind of arrangement. Dear Dr. Johnson, dear Dr. Mary, dear Doctor anything, Then that's your salutation before you now go into the introduction of your email. In the introduction, you can start by writing something around I am this person, because this individual does not know you. This is the first time you're coming in contact. I am so and so. I have a background in this with this quality of grades and this particular set of, maybe with this particular grade and this particular kind of background, and I am interested in applying for this. Maybe before how you are interested in applying for a particular thing, you can also mention that you came across this person's advert on LinkedIn, you came across this person's advert on the university's website, and you are interested in applying. Then you move on to the body of the email. That is where you highlight to the greatest extent the reasons for which you should be given that particular opportunity to support that program as a graduate assistant. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that, well, the Oyibo man or the professor abroad is going to be compassionate enough to think about how you come from a poor background and then to award you a scholarship based on your background. Many times they are not going to be looking at your poverty. They're not going to be looking at whether you made money or your parents did not have money and all that. What they want to see is your relevant skills. And sometimes if your parents were poor, for instance, and you were able to make good academic progress regardless of that poverty, then that's a winning mentality, and that's something the person might be interested in. If you have had publications in the past that are relevant to that particular research, you want to highlight it. You want to highlight your strengths. You don't want to come in there as a beggar. They're not going to give you the scholarship as a begging person. They are going to award you this scholarship purely on merit, and that's why you want to highlight your key strengths. You want to highlight your publications, your grades, your skills, your understanding of that particular research and how you can fit into it. Then you also have a closing part and a signature. You see, a lot of people go to write emails and there is no phone number in their closing signature. So when you are closing your email, you want to appreciate the person, thank the person for his or her time, and then also indicate that if need be, you are open to a further conversation or to a meeting for further conversations. You are open to answering any questions that may arise. You are open to interview. You are open to anything that the person may want to get from you in addition to the documents you have submitted. And I don't like writing cold emails without including the relevant attached documents. All right. So if the research advertisement says that they want somebody with a master's degree and I've got a master's degree, I'm going to attach that master's degree there. If I took a course that's relevant to that particular program and I have my transcript, I'm going to attach that transcript to that email. And the reason I operate this way, some people might differ on this, but the reason I operate this way is because I don't like, there are times when people come to me and they write hello in my chat box. I come back and I say hi, and I may never get back to that chat box till the next 1 month. Because there are lots of chats coming in. There are lots of emails coming to this supervisor. So you want to give the person everything he or she needs to be able to make a decision over your application. You don't want to write a cold email today and then wait for the person to ask you for your CV, or wait for the person to ask you for evidence of your academic records, or wait for the person to ask you for evidence of this or evidence of that. I go all out. I send all the things that I need to send, so long as the email is not becoming, the attachments are not going to be so heavy that it now blocks the email, the inbox of the person. I'm going to send my qualifications. I'm going to send all the relevant documents or the key relevant documents that the person will need to be able to move my application from where it is to where I want it to be. And that's the way you should operate. Of course, you will refer to those attachments in your email, and then you also need to have a signature, an email signature. If you don't know how to write an email, to create an email signature, let me know in the comment section, and then we can plan an event, or I can plan to do a video on how to create email signatures. If you don't know how to create email signatures, just drop a message in the comment section and I will be able to do that for you. All right. Then let's move forward on that. So when you create your email signature, try to include the following things. Number one, you need to include your full name. You need to include your affiliation, and you need to include your contact details. In this case, I would include my WhatsApp number and my mobile number. That's if they are different. And then if the numbers are the same, I'll just write the number in international format. In international format. All right. So don't go and write your closing signature and then write 080 if you are in Nigeria, or 0770 if you're in the UK. Make that number in the international format. Write it as plus this, that, and then you continue the rest of the number. That's it on code emails. You may want to have, if you have learned something from this code email conversation, please drop a message in the comment section. I want to be able to engage with us, and I'm coming to the question time towards the end of this. Now, after you've done all this, I've taken time to discuss code emails as one of the key documents you need for your graduate assistantship applications. The other things you will need as somebody who is interested in international scholarships is your international passport. International passport. And the names go together. International scholarship, international passport. You can't do without it. You cannot secure admission abroad without an international passport, and that's why you need to focus on it. And everybody who is a graduate today should be able to start planning towards saving money to get an international passport. I don't know how much it costs now and in your state, but you can give me an idea of how much it costs in your state, and let me know how long it takes in your state to get an international passport. What's the cost of international passport in your state or in your country? Just let me know in the comment section. You need to get that international passport there. The other thing you need is your academic CV. And the other thing you need is your transcripts. You also need your certificates. You need letters of recommendation. I believe by tomorrow, the end of tomorrow, you will have a perfect idea of how to write a good CV. And academic transcripts, I believe most of us know what it is. And most of us know what certificates are. Most of us also know what language tests are. There are some scholarships that are compulsorily tied to a language test exam. And then if you're applying to schools in the United States of America for PhDs in STEM courses, you will always be required to provide GRE in many of the institutions. Then your SOP, by the end of tomorrow, you will also have a good idea of how to write SOP and letters of motivation. But research proposals, I'm not sure we'll be able to get into that tomorrow. However, what I want to focus on today and emphasize is your recommendation letter. Because very often you have this category of students who feel like once they are done with their university, they are done with their lecturers, and that is it, a goodbye once and for a lifetime. The reality is that the lecturers you had in your school, the supervisor you had in your school, will still have a role to play in your life. And that role is going to come in the form of recommendation letter when you start applying for scholarships and even when you start applying for jobs, especially as a recent graduate. So build a relationship with your lecturers, with your HOD, with your project supervisor. Establish good relationships with them. If you did not have a good relationship, please go back now and start warming up that relationship, because you will need those recommendation letters. And as a matter of fact, anywhere you serve, if you are a copper, that place where you are serving, get a recommendation letter from them at the end of your service. I got one from the place where I served. If you are a student and you are doing IT anywhere, at the end of your IT, look for your IT supervisor and get a letter of recommendation from that person. Just have it in your pocket. Have that person's email address by the side. You may need that person at a time when you did not imagine. So get those recommendation letters, get those contact details, and make it clear to the person that, well, you are grateful for how the person has supervised you, and you will be grateful if the person will be open to giving you recommendation letters in the future, or giving you a copy of a recommendation letter at this point, just in case, to support your future applications and future endeavors. Please try to get that done. Now, even if you have all these documents, international passport, transcripts, certificates, language test, everything, you have all of them, if you don't have the passion to chase international scholarships, you will not win any international scholarship. And if you have the passion and the interest to pursue international scholarships, but you never put action to that passion, you will not win any international scholarship. Now, if you have the passion and you have the action, but you do not have the resilience, you may still not win the international scholarship, because your first application may not be a success. So, but the resilient ones will apply for the first time. If it doesn't work, they go back to apply a second time. If it doesn't work, they go back, improve on the application strategies, and reapply a third time. And that is how resilience can help you push you to a winning position. You need to have the passion, you need to have the action, and then you need to have the resilience. All of these other things are documents that you can get very easily. I know that in Nigeria there are schools that will charge you money for your transcript, so I would like to do a brief comparison on this live video between the cost of your transcript and the cost of international passport. Please, what is the cost of international passport in your country or in your state, and what is the cost of transcript in your school? I can see somebody who has written that it's about 45,000 in Ogun State. I can see somebody who has written that it's 37,000 in his or her own state. In his own state, that's Okafor. Then please, if you can send something, just write me a message on this comment section, the cost of international passport in your country, the cost of transcripts in your university. I would like to see that for a reason, and we may have something good in the plans to support someone towards getting one of these documents in the near future. I want to have a very good idea of what we should be looking at. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, now what are the steps? What are the steps to an international scholarship? The first thing is, I would say, and I would encourage everyone, I'm not going to lay emphasis on this because this is addressing graduates. So I'm not going to lay emphasis on the first one so much. But if you are a student, or you are a lecturer, or you know anybody, you are a corper and you are serving in a place where you have students under you, please go back to them tomorrow or any day and emphasize it to them until they understand it, that good grades are still relevant even in this current world. All right, and the reason good grades are very important is because I would keep telling people, the person, you can know somebody will tell you, well, the education is not relevant, education is nonsense, you can't use it to do anything. That's their opinion. The reality in the world is that if you have good education, evidenced by your good grades, your good skill set, and your good CGPA, it makes a lot of things a whole lot easier for you. It makes your networking easier. It makes winning a scholarship easier. It makes getting a job easier. It makes getting the audience of people easier. And the reason is because while the person you know matters, or while who you know matters in life, the person you know is interested in knowing what you know. Because what you know is what will give the person the assurance that you will not disgrace him or you will not disgrace her if that person hires you or that person recommends you for a position. And I will repeat, The person you know wants to know what you know, because what you know is your evidence to the person that you will not disgrace that person if he or she hires you, or if he or she recommends you for a position somewhere. So try the best you can to build that good grade. Apart from the grade, then let's move on to the other thing that's relevant to graduate: skills. I know that in Nigeria, for instance, I'm not against NYSC, right? And I'm not against the leadership of NYSC. But there are certain things you do in NYSC during your days in the NYSC that are completely irrelevant to your progress as a graduate. Now, I know that you have all these various Said programs here and there. And I will tell you, instead of investing your money in certain kinds of Said program, take that money, invest it in developing a skill set that is relevant to your field. Go and learn how to program. Go and learn how to code if you are in the STEM field. Go and learn how to use a simulation tool. Go and pay somebody to teach you how to write publications if you have not written any. Focus that time, devote that time to writing a publishable paper. And by the time you are done with that, you would have built a skill set that is marketable, a skill set that's international, that can take you global. Remember, we mentioned how you need to think of yourself as a global citizen. You want to build skills that are relevant in the international market, relevant in international institutions. Instead of spending your time on doing something that's not going to help you, wasting your time on some kind of things that will not be relevant to you, please go ahead, make the investment into something that will be profitable to you. If you are a first class graduate, for instance, instead of paying some money to some kind of programs that you will not use, spend that money and get yourself an international passport. Spend that money and get yourself your transcript together. Spend that money to build a relevant skill that will be useful to your future. Of course, if you have all the money, then you can do all the Said. But even if you are doing the Said, the question is, how are you going to use that Said? How relevant is the Said to your future? If the Said is very relevant to your future, please, by all means, go into it. But if the Said is something that's completely irrelevant to your future, I want to advise you today, and this is based on my experience, take that money, invest it in building a skill. When I was doing NYSC, I had the opportunity of learning a particular program. I spent close to roughly maybe 200,000 naira at the time, and this was when the naira had value, to pay for a training program to transport myself to Port Harcourt, to stay in Port Harcourt for a 3-day program. Very intensive. I was learning that software like morning till evening for 3 consecutive days, and I paid that money. I spent that money to get the software installed, to learn how to use the software, to take care of myself in Port Harcourt and all that. But I can tell you that that particular trip was key to the first job I got and the first professional job I did. And that's why I tell you that networking somehow has a way, or has a role in all the jobs I have done. That conversation started on LinkedIn, and then it moved to Port Harcourt, and then somehow it moved me to Lagos, where I did my first professional job in Nigeria. So that's how you want to start thinking. I was a copper when I did that particular program. If Liberty Below is on this call, he will very likely remember it, because then I was in Akwa Ibom State. You may not have 200,000 naira as I had at the time. I had come back from Russia and I had some money. I had money then. The NYSC money probably I would not have been able to save that amount based on my NYSC allowance. But I had some extra money. But the point I'm trying to make is, be focused. Try to build skills that are relevant to your future. The other thing is, you need to volunteer. And fortunately, NYSC is National Youth Service, for those of you who are not from Nigeria. But at the point where you have graduated, try to make some kind of voluntary activity. Because you remember I mentioned, if you go back to the other slides, that the way you win some of these scholarships is through volunteering. Maybe I should highlight it. You can see my cursor moving around somewhere. Community involvement, that's volunteering. So you want to volunteer a little bit to your community, contribute to the progress of your community, and you will be in a good position to win scholarship. Now, gather your documents. All these documents we've mentioned, your transcript, your international passport, every of them, starting from your international passport and transcript stroke certificate, start gathering those documents and getting them ready. Don't wait for opportunities to meet you unprepared. Rather, be prepared for opportunities and be waiting for those opportunities. And when they come, grab them with both hands and make very good use of them. After you've done all of this, the other thing you want to do is apply and apply non-stop. You don't want to be in the category that applies for one scholarship and goes back to fold his hands. If I tell you how many scholarships I've applied for in life, you will be shocked. But the difference between the winners and those who lose is the consistency, continually improving your application and resiliently applying for more options. And sometimes you never can tell. I have this friend, I don't know if he's on this call, but back in 2015, we were applying for scholarships, and I somehow encouraged him to apply, and he applied. Even though he was not very hopeful that he was going to win it, but he won that scholarship. And that's why you need to apply. Don't fold your hands and tell me how you applied yesterday and it failed, and because of that you're not going to apply again. It's just like, think of yourself as going into job application or the job market. You apply for the first job and you don't get it, and then you fold your hands and say, well, I'm no longer applying. Or you are a business person and you reach out to your first client. The person says, well, I don't have a need for your services. And then you go back to say, oh, I missed the first client, and so I'm not going to reach out to the second client. You don't want to be in that position. Apply and keep applying. Improve your application each time, and then you will be closer to a scholarship than you were when you first started. Then build up your presentation skills. Build your presentation skills. I repeat, build your presentation skills. If you don't know how to do it, stand before a mirror in your room, talk to yourself as though you are presenting to an audience. You're going to build up your presentation skill because you're going to need it a lot. In addition to building how to talk and how to speak, the other thing you want to build is how to, to develop slides. Because in many cases, just yesterday I was with someone who has been invited for an interview in one company, and he was asking me questions. He was showing me his slides, and we were discussing how we could improve those slides. Today, I got another message on LinkedIn of somebody who is invited for another interview, and he's asking me for my ideas on how to build his slides. And the first thing I do on slides is, if you look at all these slides that you have here, you will hardly find any of them that is completely full of bullet points. Don't go and saturate your slides with bullet points and all that. And if you look at these slides, there is a structure to it. If we go back to the first slide, I'm just trying to take a moment. This is not a presentation skill something, but look at how this slide starts. If you look at this, you can almost tell completely where this conversation is going from the first slide. That's what is called the framework of your presentation. And I do this pretty much in most of my presentations these days. You need to have a framework, and within this framework you are operating. Then you move forward to this one. We'll do a brainstorming. That's you trying to warm the people up. Depending on the nature of the presentation and how long of a time you have, you may include something like this, a brainstorming section. Then you continue to move. At this point, you can see a bridge, and then you can see a conversation by the side. So the slides never get boring. And then you continue and you keep seeing all these engaging things. You can see this one. You see something that gives you an idea. The body is in green. Every other thing has to work, but the body is also core to the message you are presenting. Is at the center of the thing, is carrying the closure, is carrying the introduction, is attached to it, the subject is attached to it, everything revolves around the body. You can begin to get those ideas, and as I'm talking to you, you are picking up those ideas. Even without talking so much, you can look at this slide and you can tell what the message is that I'm trying to communicate. That's how you build your presentation skills. You can look at this one and it keeps moving. And when you get to this point, you can see something like a triangle. and then you can see something in red. There's a reason why it's highlighted in red, because you have to do something. This is a position where you are, it looks more like you are losing, but you are investing in your future. When you are volunteering, nobody is going to pay you for it, because it's a voluntary service, and voluntary service can be different in different dimensions. It can be you teaching people tutorials, it can be you cleaning up your society, it can be you doing one thing or the other, supporting one elderly person or the other in your community. All of these are voluntary. It can be you organizing your class and hosting a scholarship discussion with them. All of these are things that you can do as your volunteering experience. So long as it's profitable to humanity and you are not paid for it, that's voluntary service. What I'm doing today is voluntary service as well, because you are not paying for it. All right. Now, when we are done with all of those things, the other thing you need to do is practice how to do interviews. And when you start doing interviews, don't fall into the category of people who cannot make two sentences without putting there. You can count the number of times I've said in this whole conversation. And I have been talking non-stop, or practically for close to 1 hour 30 minutes. All right, so I'm going to move faster now because of our time. In this particular place, there are a lot of people who have the good grades, they have the skills, they have the volunteering experience, they have all the documents, they are willing to apply, the presentation skill is there, the interview skill is there, but they don't know how to write. So that is why you want to build up your writing skills. And a good writing skill, or a good piece of writing, starts from proper good record keeping, or proper record keeping. Now, if I want to report on what we have done today, I will want to look at the number of people who attended today's event. And I can see at the moment that this event has had 73 views on YouTube. All right, so I can begin to now craft the email, I can begin to now craft the essay around the impact that I have been able to make today. And that impact is an impact on, say, 74 persons who have viewed this event today. So if I've been able to impact 17 people, how do I detail this event? I know that we started at this particular point and we're going to finish at this particular point. I'm going to also include the length of time of my engagement in the essay. And I'm also going to include the range of places from which people attended today's event. And like I asked during one of these events, or at some point in the event, where are you joining us from? You told me you are joining from Enugu State or from Ogun State or from those places. When I'm writing my report or my essay based on this particular event, I'm going to write that people joined from this particular location, or from Nigeria, from Ghana, from 5 different countries across Africa, across the globe, and within Nigeria from maybe 5 to 10 different states of the Federation. I need all of this data, and I'm able to write a good essay because I have all of this data within my hands. So there are people who have all the information, they have all the experience, but they don't have the information that is required to be able to produce a very good essay. So the first thing you must take from here today is that you want to start keeping good record of all the things you are doing, good record of all the impact you are making, good record of all the engagements you are having, because you will need those records in your essay writing, and as we will see tomorrow, even in your CV. Record keeping is the first step to writing a very good essay. Now, improving your writing skills, you would have seen a post I made on Facebook where I discussed, or I simplified, the STAR approach and the 5W principles, or the 5W writing framework. The STAR approach is what is relevant to essay writing, and essay writing is relevant to some of the institutional scholarships. So I'm going to just go a little further into it. STAR means that you are talking about situation, you are talking about task, you are talking about actions, you are talking about your results. All right. This could be very often people try to use the star approach to write about something events in the past, but you can also apply this to events in the future. I've discussed this across different videos, but let me just highlight that when you want to talk about your leadership experience and you don't have an existing leadership experience, you can still use the star approach. And this is relevant to those of you who will be applying for the Chevening scholarship. So the situation will be the exact situation of maybe your country or the society or the group that you would want to lead. Then you have to describe the current state, the current situation in that particular place. If there is a leadership void in your country or bad leadership, you want to create a picture of that leadership situation. Then at the end of that, what's the task? The task you have is now the task that you are placing before yourself to be able to change that bad leadership into a good one if you take position. Or like some leadership experts would say, they will tell you that there is no good or bad leadership, that there is an effective or an ineffective leadership. You want to just be able to write those tasks, those things you will do in clear terms to be able to change the direction of leadership in your country or in your organization or in your group. Then the actions. What are the actions you are going to take? Between the time you meet the situation, the task before you is to turn this situation around, or to take this organization from maybe 50 persons to 100 members, or to take this organization from generating a revenue of $2,000 to a revenue of $1,000 or $1 million rather. Now, what will be the actions you will take? Are you going to create a place on the website of the organization or the website of your country, if your country has one, to place adverts there in order to be able to generate that revenue? Are you going to reduce taxes? Are you going to increase taxes? If you are going to increase taxes, what are the metrics that back it up? Are you going to squeeze out money from parents or increase the school fees or reduce the school fees? If, for instance, you want to increase economic development in the next 5 to 10 years, what are you going to do with education? Are you going to bring in more people to teach? Are you going to fly more people abroad to learn? Are you going to build a world-class teaching institution in your country? What are you going to do? Those are going to be the actions before you to be able to change that leadership situation or to change that situation of your country to a better one. The results will be the expected result. If I do this, I am expecting that I will get this. That is, if you are using the star approach to write a leadership essay in the future tense. But very commonly, people use the star approach to write their essays reflecting what they've been able to do in the past. The 5W principle I'm going to discuss tomorrow when we discuss CV writing. Put your mark there. 5W principles. If you use this on your CVs, you're going to get a CV that will amaze anybody, anywhere, at any time. Then build scholarship specific experience. There are scholarships. If you go back to this particular slide, you will find that there are certain things I have highlighted that are specific to some of the categories of scholarships. There are those that cut across all the scholarship groups, but you want to build your experiences that are specific to the scholarships and learn to talk to alumni of each of those scholarships. If the scholarship says that you need your leadership experience, don't go and apply without leadership experience. And especially if you cannot even foresee yourself as a leader or put an essay together that shows that you understand the leadership problem of your country and you have some solutions to it. All right, you can be a leader in the sense you can showcase your leadership skills by showing evidence of what you have done in the past. You can also showcase your leadership skills by showing evidence that you understand the leadership crisis and you understand the solutions to those leadership crises in your country. Learn to speak to alumni. If, for instance, you are interested in applying for the PTDF scholarship, go to LinkedIn. This again is why you don't want to miss the last day of this event on Saturday. If you go to LinkedIn and you search for PTDF scholars, you will have a good number of us there. If you go to LinkedIn and you search for graduate assistants, you have a good number of people there. If you go to LinkedIn and you write Chevening scholars. You will find a good number of them there. So learn to talk to the alumni of all these scholarships that you're applying for. And if you start talking to any alumni and the person starts from telling you how it is difficult, how it is impossible, then that's the wrong person to speak to. Avoid that person. Find the next person who will tell you about the challenges and about how to overcome those challenges. Don't let anybody talk you down and make you feel that the person was only able to achieve it. There is only that person who can achieve it and no other person can achieve it. Yes, it is good to tell you the reality that this is competitive, this is difficult, but let that person also be providing side by side instructions on how you can win this particular scholarship, how you can overcome those challenges, and how you can stand out in that competition. Those are the kind of people you want to speak with, the ones that pass hope across to you, the ones that re-energize you to apply, the ones that encourage you and give you hope. And in giving you hope, present the reality of the situation to you. If you are asking me about the PTDF scholarship, I will tell you that it's very competitive, but I will also tell you that I know a lot of people who have won it, and I will also tell you that if you do the right things, you can win that scholarship. So learn to talk to alumni of each of these scholarships that you are interested in applying for. Now, this one, you see, pay attention to the details of the application requirements. Every scholarship is unique in its own way. Every scholarship is unique in its own way. So if you're applying for Chevening scholarship and you pick up the same essay you used for Chevening, and without modification, use that same essay to apply for PTDF scholarship, or use that same essay to apply for MasterCard Foundation scholarship, you stand a very big chance of losing that scholarship application. Because each of these scholarships are unique. There are some scholarships where the person or the funder or the professor will tell you, well, I need you to upload your CV. I need you to upload your transcripts. I need you to upload your certificate. Please do not go ahead and submit if you have not uploaded those 3 documents. There are some where they will tell you, I need you to upload a 1-page copy of your CV. 1 page. And I've been in that situation recently where somebody told me to get her a 1-page copy of my CV. And I know how challenging it was for me to reduce my CV and compress it to 1 page. But somehow I managed to do it, and it's been a very nice conversation between myself and that team, till this day. And hopefully something good should be up from there. Now, pay attention to the details. If the scholarship, the main aim of the scholarship is to address climate change, don't go there and start writing about addressing, let's say, engineering education, or addressing education in how to mine coal or how to mine gold. If you are going to write about gold mining or coal mining, then you should be writing about it in terms of how you can improve those processes, optimize those processes to cut down on their carbon footprint. Do not go to a scholarship that wants to build a group of educators, a group of teachers, and then you are writing about how you want to become an engineer, or how your long-term goal is to become the CEO of an oil and gas company, without defining how you intend to be that to, as a CEO, cut down on the carbon emissions of the company. So pay attention to the details. And it may look like something very common and something everybody can do, but just recently, one professor in Canada, her name is Rita Oji, a Nigerian, she wrote a post on her LinkedIn page and said that 50% of applicants who applied to a position she advertised did not follow instructions. 50% of applicants, that's half of the applicants, they did not follow the instructions, and because they did not follow the instructions that were given to them, they kicked themselves out of these scholarship applications. Now, all the conversations about scholarships and this and that If you do not find the scholarships, you will not be able to apply. And if you do not apply for the scholarships, you will not win. And that is why it's important that you get to know where to find these scholarships. I have not exhausted all the places where you can find scholarships, but the list I have here should be a good starting point. Has anyone else joined us from anywhere outside of Nigeria? Please let me know in the comment section. I can see someone joined us from Gambia. That's Mustafa. Thank you so much for joining us. Somebody is saying, what about volunteer services that doesn't get you a certificate? How do you include that on your CV? We're coming to those questions. This is from Olasi in Kiru. We're coming to that question and we will address them just very shortly. So let's see the places where you can find scholarships. Places where you can find scholarships. All right. So the first place where you can find scholarships will be on the websites of universities. And I'll tell you what, all these things you see, again, this is part of how you should be thinking of presentations when you do one. You see, this is like a gear system. All the major classes are interrelated, they are interconnected, and you don't want to address anyone, you don't want to pick anyone in isolation. You're not going to pick the university websites alone. You're not going to pick the websites of scholarship organizations and awarding institutions alone. You're not going to pick scholarship blogs alone. You're not going to pick social media platforms alone. You're not even going to use Google or AI tools alone in your scholarship search. This is how it works. You need to use all of these things as a gear system, a chain system. They are all interlinked and working together. So the reason they work together is because if you are a maths person, or let's say you are a physicist, and you go to the website of a university and you are looking for the department of physics, that is the ideal thing you should do. But you go to the faculty of physics and you are looking at physics department, and all you are seeing there are funded projects that professors within your faculty are supervising. But there could be somewhere in the faculty of engineering a professor who has got funding in something related to photovoltaic cells or something related to nuclear energy, and you are here, a graduate of nuclear physics, and stuck within the section of the website that is related to physics, and because you are stuck there, you are not seeing these opportunities that this other man in engineering has advertised. But if you are able to use this as a chain, you are looking at the website of the schools, but you are using social media platforms. You are connecting with professors within all the relevant fields to yourself. You are also using the relevant social media blogs and pages. For instance, you are following Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. You are following all the other people who are advertising scholarships on a daily basis. And then you are using Google search. Then you may now stumble on that scholarship within the Faculty of Engineering, which you would not have seen focusing on your section of the university's website. And that's why you need to look at this as a combination of factors, a combination of places. When you do that, you will be able to win scholarships. Now, before we make progress to what will be our last slide, I want to emphasize something. When you start looking for scholarships, you need to understand that there is something called interdisciplinary research. That's number one. Number two is you need to understand that there are some scholarships which are termed PhD scholarships, but as an undergraduate, as a recent graduate without a master's degree, you are allowed to apply for those kind of scholarships if you have good grades, or you have good publications, or you have skills that are relevant to that particular research. That is what is called direct PhD. You can go from your bachelor's degree, jump a master's degree, and go straight to a PhD. That is something you need to bear in mind. So the next time you see a PhD scholarship advertised anywhere on Academy of Scholarships and Transitions or any other place, try to look at the eligibility Don't just run away because it says graduates or because it says PhD. Look at the eligibility. Are you eligible as a bachelor's degree holder, or are you only eligible at the point where you have a master's degree? If you are eligible, as if they have given allowance for bachelor's degree holders to apply, please go ahead and apply. Now, on interdisciplinary research, it means that there are many research opportunities that are not going to be named the way your bachelor's degree was named. And a typical example would be all the research programs in renewable energy. Most of them are never going to be named according to any of the degrees you have from your bachelor's or even from your master's degree. And if you start, for instance, my research area is in well abandonment. But even though it's in well abandonment, it's going to be a combination of well engineering and materials engineering. That's interdisciplinary. For some other persons, it's going to be a combination of engineering and management. For some people, it's going to be a combination of physics, engineering, and maths. So what you need to start looking at the point where you are looking for graduate school applications and looking for scholarships for postgraduate studies is, what are the skills you have? What is the knowledge you have? How do they fit into the requirements for this particular scholarship you are going into? That's the more important thing to look at. Don't start waiting and looking for where they will tell you, oh, this is a PhD scholarship in pure and applied mathematics. You may not find that. You are going to come across some, but that will just be a limited number of the possibilities you have. So consider interdisciplinary scholarships, consider interdisciplinary research, and also consider PhD scholarships that are allowing direct PhD applications. This slide, I love to talk about it, but I am not going to talk about this slide today. This is a slide. This is one of my major networking slides, and I am going to take time to discuss this slide on Saturday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the third day, or on the third day of this workshop. If you have joined this workshop today and you've benefited from the workshop, I want to give you a task. Ensure that by tomorrow this time, 2 people in addition to yourself will attend this event under or through your invitation. This particular slide, we are reserving it for Saturday. Now, as a closing remark for today, before your questions begin to come in, I want to say that if you know all the things we have said today and you do not show up anywhere with your applications, then all we have done today is a waste of time. Or to the best use of it that you can have is to help someone with the information. But what you want to do is to step up your game, step out and apply. 80% of success is in showing up. That quote is not from me. The quote is from Woody Allen. And what I will tell you, which is a direct quote from myself, is that this world is too distracted to remember the professional, to remember the student, to remember the recent graduate who does not show up. Nobody is going to come and carry scholarship from wherever and dump in your hands in your house. Right? You need to show up. You need to indicate interest. You need to show the people that you are interested in scholarships, and that is the only time they can give you a scholarship. And remember, I believe this scripture, and I know that this scripture works. This is a quotation from the Bible. Ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. See, don't go and fold your hands and wait for a scholarship to fall from heaven into your plate or into your palms. You are going to have to knock. And I emphasize that there are some doors you will need to knock on again and again and again and again before that door opens. And that's why you want to approach your scholarship application from multiple dimensions. You are doing the cold emails as we have discussed today, and you're going to be doing the CVs and the SOPs that we're going to discuss tomorrow. You're also going to be doing the networking that we discuss on Saturday. And the reason you want to approach it on multiple dimensions is because some doors you need to knock on them consistently and through several approaches. You need to knock at different frequencies. Knock at the frequency of a cold email. Knock at the frequency of networking on LinkedIn. Knock at the frequency of having solid aces and outstanding CVs. These are the multiple dimensions on which you can knock. And if you seek, the door you will find, and you knock, the door will be opened unto you. Your seeking starts from your passion. And if you don't show up, if you don't ask for it through your applications, forget it. You are not going to get it. But my encouragement to you today is, after this particular event, go pick up yourself and rearrange your mind and realign your mind on the positivity and the possibility of winning. And then you will win. And as much as you do your part, trust in God, because it's not of him that runneth, it's not of him that willeth, it's of God that showeth mercy. And this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. Please, if you have just joined us, tell me where you've joined us from. Don't go away without telling me the cost of international passport in your state or in your country, and without telling me the cost of transcripts in your school. I want to have an idea of those, and possibly we may be able to fund one of those for one of our followers. Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. Now, let's go into our question and answer time. If you have any question, please go straight to the point. Drop them in this comment section. While I wait for your questions, let me just take some time to go through the comments that have been written here. Otito Okafor, you were the very first person that commented on this post today. If you are still on this live chat, drop a message in the comment section just right now. Otito Okafor, if you are still on this live event, please drop a message. Just say hello in the comment section. I want that for a reason. He confirmed he can hear me. Chidera Jane can hear me as well. Ulasi Nkiru can hear me. If you're also still on this live call, Ulasi, drop a message in the comment section. I remember you had a question somewhere, and I would like to answer that question just now. Umar said he can hear me clearly. Anslem said he can hear me clearly. I thought so too about English proficiency exam. This was a confirmation of what I said. Somebody joined us all the way from Adamawa State, Bello. Thank you so much for joining all the way. Olasi joined us from Benin City. I'm waiting for your questions, and I'm just appreciating all of you that joined the event today. Somebody joined us from Ogun State. I can't seem to be able to pronounce the name. Mwafo Blesson is watching us from Enugu State, Nigeria. That's 042. They say that 042 is not just an area code, it's a state of mind. How is the coal city today? Then Abasi joined us from Rivers. That's the oil state in Nigeria. Dr. Anslem joined us from Scotland. Umar joined us from Abuja, Nigeria. Chidera joined us from UK. This IELTS has been giving me restless mind. Thank you so much for your comment on it. This was Unwafo. There are scholarships you can apply for without it, and many times you can ask for a waiver and you will get a waiver. Ajayi Kayode Israel joined us from Footmina. Thank you so much for joining. I remember that name very much, and keep up the good work you are doing there. Blessing says, I know about Rose Scholarship is open till 28th August. All right, so this is a confirmation. One of the scholarships we mentioned today is open till 28th of August. Go there and apply. Is the SOP for the graduate is... Okay, yeah, SOP, it depends on the graduate, with the structure of the graduate assistantship you are looking for. But most times, SOP is written for admission. SOP is written for admission into a school. It's not really for the sake of the scholarship. Sometimes it will be a part of the criteria that is used for the scholarship, but most times, again, it depends on the structure. There are some graduate assistantships that you can secure directly from a professor. There are some that you can only secure through application to a program in the school. So if it's the one that comes with the admission, then your SOP is a key component of it. If it's the one that's mostly dependent on the supervisor or the professor, then your cold email is a very big part of that. But regardless, whenever you're going into any school abroad, SOP will be part of the things that you write. And we're going to touch on SOP tomorrow as well. Otito mentioned some of the other things, social media and all that. Olasi mentioned that this is insightful. I don't know how to create an email signature. Please, can you assist me on that? Okay, so you will just watch out on our social media platforms. I'll do a video on how to create email signatures. It will also help if you can let me know which of the emails you are using or the email services. Is it Gmail? Is it Yahoo Mail? Is it Outlook? Let me know which of them you are using, and then we can tailor the training to that. Please, I don't know how to create an email signature and would like to learn. These are two persons, and take it from me as a commitment, you will get that tutorial from me. I don't know how to create that as another person. I will do that on behalf of every one of us. The cold email section is insightful. I learned how to write cold email, especially on the body of the email. That's a great one. So these are all comments. I want to see questions and I want to address questions. Yep. So my question, Emmanuel Ezekiel, talking about relevant skills, can you mention a few skills? All right. So, I'm an engineer. So if you ask me for relevant skills, what comes to mind first will be engineering skills. But there is a skill set that is always going to be relevant across board for anybody who is going into research. And that skill set is what is called research skill. If you have relevant research skills, and this will include all the skills that are called, for instance, data analysis, data processing, technical writing, research, laboratory skills, or if it's going to be a qualitative research, then you can look at survey writing or survey designs. Those are going to be relevant skills that will cut across different departments and different faculties. But if you are in engineering or you are in anything STEM, I would want to say, and take this from me to any place, any skill, any software that is used for simulation in your field, and you can learn that simulation tool, please learn that simulation tool. Then, in addition to learning simulation tools, anybody who learns how to program in Python, how to do data analysis in Python, at least, you have a very big step ahead of most of the other applicants. If you are within the STEM and the engineering faculties. Then in engineering, for instance, you have something called ANSYS. It's a software tool and it has different packages. There's a package that is used for material selection, ANSYS Granter. There's another one that is used for simulation, simulation of fluid dynamics, fluid mechanics, mechanical properties of materials, aging test and all that. That's ANSYS as well. There is also a software called COMSOL Multiphysics, or anyhow you call it. But those are softwares you can learn. For process engineers, there's something called Aspen HYSYS. Aspen HYSYS is one of, in fact, I met someone in the UK that uses Aspen HYSYS to make between 16 to 18,000 pounds a month, just consulting with Aspen HYSYS. This is familiar to those of you who come from chemical engineering backgrounds or process engineers, as you may want to be called. So these are some of the skills that you will need. But learn how to, if you know how to write technical papers, that's something that will always be an advantage. If you know how to write, if you know how to do data analysis and data processing, that's also going to be an advantage across board. If you know how to, if you have some experimental skills, that's good. If you have some survey design kind of skills, because you will always need surveys in most of your quantitative research. I don't know if that answers your questions, but the skills are going to be specific to the field. Then let's look at the next question. Okay, certification courses is relevant or substitute for skills? So again, it depends. There are some certification courses that will come with skills. For instance, when I did well control certification exam, well-control certification comes with skills in doing well control, up to maybe secondary well control. This is oil and gas jargon, of course, but some certification programs will come with certain skills. If you go for a project management certification course, for instance, that's project management. Look at the skills you developed in the process of the certification course and then highlight those skills as your relevant skills. You can mention the certification itself, but highlight the skills you picked up in the process of the certification training, and that will be very helpful. All right. Okay. So Otito was still with us till this point. Then thank you very much for that. I will get back to you later, either today or maybe tomorrow. Then honestly, waiting for the SOP writing lecture tomorrow. Olas Nkiru, all right, we are going to meet there. Is going to come with CV writing class as well. So try to be there and try to bring your friends along when you come. Someone says, thank you so much for this insightful presentation. May Allah reward you abundantly. Thank you so much for your kind wishes and thank you for joining us. Looking forward to meeting all of us tomorrow. Cost of transcript in Footmina is 10,000 naira. All right, that's not so bad. Transcript costs 7,000. That's not so bad. Then what do you think about skill certification from online platforms like Udemy? It's going to always be relevant. Any skill you can gain it. Any skill you can gain it. Whether it's from online platform, whether it's from physical trainings, please go ahead and gain it. And if you go to FedEx, EDX. I think EDEX. If you go to that platform, you'll find a lot of relevant courses that you can get free of charge. And I recommend that you go there and take some of those courses as well. Thank you so much for the explanation. As educational students graduate, do you think there's opportunity? Of course, there is. In fact, one of the persons I mentioned if you watch the video I made, I think 2 days ago, about two people who won scholarships, I think the maths person is actually from a background in maths education. Let me not confuse something. His background is either in maths education or the scholarship he won is going to be in maths education. And the other thing I tell people is, that's why I'm saying don't wait until the scholarship is titled according to the course you already studied. The scholarship can be in maths, it can be in pure and applied maths, but if you have studied maths education, for instance, you have the relevant skills, the mathematical skills to be able to go into that particular scholarship, compete for it, get the scholarship and deliver on the scholarship. All right, so don't wait until it's called education biology. You can find other scholarships that are going to be different areas of biology, but you have the foundational skills, the relevant knowledge and the relevant empowerment to be able to leap into that program. I tell people this: don't let your current education become a restriction to you. Don't limit yourself within that box. Treat your current education, your current certificate, your current level of education as a launch pad. Is a launch pad for you. I had my bachelor's degree in oil and gas engineering. My master's degree was somewhere related in well engineering. It's an aspect of oil and gas. But my PhD could have also been in well engineering. But I decided to do well abandonment. And in doing well abandonment, I'm looking at mostly materials. That's my PhD can be. You can call it a materials engineering PhD or a material science PhD, anyone you decide to, right? But this is me coming from an oil and gas background. So don't let your current education be your box within which you are limited. Let that current education be your launch pad, and then you can excel to several other things from there. This is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. I don't know if there are any additional questions. We are 4 minutes shooting beyond our intended time. This is 4 minutes past 10. And I would like to drop this for us in the comments section. Please help me to fill this form if you have not filled it. This is just a survey to, help me know that people, to get an idea of who has joined us today and to get an idea of how much of use the things we are doing are to people. This is a short Google form survey, and please, I'll be glad if you can fill it for me. Google form survey. Let me just pull it here. I'll drop the link in the comment section. Please help me to fill the form and let me know what you think of today's event. And of course, before you just go, please get your friends to attend this event tomorrow. This event is free of charge, but as you can see, there is nothing in this today's event that looks like a free offer. Everything I've done today took me time to develop, right? They took time to develop. And if I committed this time to something else, I know how much money I will make if I spent 2 hours to work. All right? So please inform your friends so that we don't have to be repeating these kind of things and everybody will be able to benefit. So Godswell says, if you organize tutorials for your colleagues, how do you include it as a volunteering experience? This is a very nice question. I love it. So when you organize tutorials, so long as you have not charged money for that tutorial, it is a volunteering experience. And I like the fact that you're asking this question, because the earlier we know these things, the better for us. When you come to all these foreign countries, you see them making donations, you see them creating charities, you see them creating foundations, and all the money they spend on that foundation, even though the foundation is like a front for promoting their brand, all the money they spend in that foundation, there's a way they claim back some benefits from the government for spending money on those foundations. So if you have organized tutorials for your classmates, when you go to write a scholarship essay that is demanding for your volunteering experience, what you just need to do is quantify it. So your colleagues are 5 in number. Then describe their situation at the point you met them. They were struggling with this particular course, and then you got to know about it, and you decided to help them. But if you decided to help them one-on-one, every individual at a time, or a single individual at a time, is going to wear you out and you will not be able to have significant impact. So in order to increase the amount of impact you could have while still being able to focus on your study, you decided to organize a tutorial, a collective tutorial class. And in that collective tutorial, you made it open, free of charge, to all the participants. And because it was an open to all participants, you had 10 people attending or 5 people attending. And at the end of the tutorials, these were the feedback of the people. These were the things that the people did, or this was how it affected their academic performance and improved their academic performance. Maybe somebody went from failing that course to passing the course. That was good impact. You did not charge money, and you have made positive impact on the life of one person or on the life of 10 people. Now again, you need to learn how to report something when you write essays. For instance, if you had 10 people who participated, and maybe 1% of 10 is then you begin to think of it. Should you use the numbers or the percentages? Sometimes the percentage passes a better information about what you have done than the numbers. So instead of saying one person passed, you can then think of, should I say over 10% of the people, or should I say 10% of the people passed? If 5 people passed, and you say that 5 people passed your class, would it be best to say that 5 people passed after your tutorials, or to say that 50% of the participants passed? If you follow politicians, that if you watch the way politicians write, there is a way they report numbers without telling lies, but they highlight certain aspects of the data, key aspects of the data that will catch the attention of people. And if you are not very careful, you may not even be able to grab all the details of the parts that they have hidden from you. So you learn to report, but in reporting, do not go into telling lies. If the percentages will highlight what you have done better, use the percentages. If the numbers will highlight them, use the numbers, but try to highlight those things and always remember that whatever you've done is a good volunteering experience. I don't know if there is any other question, but in the absence of other questions, I think we can call this a day and then look forward to tomorrow. If you will be joining us tomorrow, just drop a message in the comment section, say see you tomorrow, and then we'll be hopeful that we will see you tomorrow. This is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. If you don't know my name, I am Chukwuemeka Augustine Okechukwu. You can find me on social media you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, any of those places. Let's connect. My LinkedIn is connected to this YouTube channel, so you can go from this YouTube channel and find me directly on LinkedIn, and we will be fully connected one with another. This time tomorrow, we will be looking at the second day in this edition of workshop. Academy of Scholarships and Transitions for a reason. Here we try to teach. We don't just share scholarship opportunities. We show you how to win scholarships. If you follow what we are saying here, follow the instructions we are giving, and follow the teachings we are giving, you will be on a good track to winning scholarships. Chukwuemeka Augustine is my name, and I teach from experience. I've won 4 different scholarships in addition to a student bursary. Thank you so much for joining us. On networking, I've networked my way to jobs. I have networked my way to selling training courses before to engineers. And if you know engineers very well, we are probably one of the toughest group of people to sell to, because we need you to make it make sense to us before we buy from you. And I was able to achieve all of this through a unique networking strategy that I will be discussing with us on Saturday. Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. This is me signing off from here. Bye-bye for now and see you tomorrow. Good night.